Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast, is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale and Clark Pro. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm chatting with Jared Gleaton. Jared is an emerging voice in the culinary world, dedicated to highlighting Oklahoma's vibrant food scene. Through his YouTube channel, Jared Gleaton Eats, and recently released book, A Feast of the Senses, The Psychological Art of Eating Well, Jared explores the world of food psychology, also known as Foodology, exploring how the five senses influence our food choices and decisions. As a psychologist by profession, he brings a unique perspective to the table, blending his expertise in human behavior with his passion for food. Jared, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I am so glad you reached out and connected, because this is not something I'd really ever given a lot of thought to. But after our conversation, I don't know why I haven't, right? It just makes so much sense. And so I want to talk about how you got into food first, though, before
Sure.
we dive into the technical stuff, because you are a classically trained psychologist. That's currently your day job. And
Yep.
so how did you get into food, and what kind of drove you to do this?
So it all starts at the beginning, really. It's how most of it gets into food. It's through our environment. And that was something I got to share with my father early on and sisters later on. And we really shared great meals around the table. And Pennsylvania Dutch cooking, he would make whoopie pies, pumpkin pies, squash pies, apple pies, and he was known as the pie feed. And so that really shaped my relationship for food for a very long time. And so that's how I got started. And then I'm originally from Maine, and then I moved out to Oklahoma about 26 years ago. I went to school, got an undergraduate degree in psychology, a graduate degree in school psychology, and that's what I've been practicing. And then I lost my father in 2016. So that was a period of grief. And during that time, I had bloomed up to about 376 pounds, and I lost that weight in a year. And in losing that weight, I had to appreciate food more because I was dieting. I was doing calorie deficits. If you burn more calories than you eat, you lose weight. And I was exercising. So I really developed my palate and explored flavors. And then I decided, thinking about the emotional aspect of food, the joys of just having that bite and appreciating each and every meal on a different personal level, really helped broaden my horizons. And so I merged that realm of my training as a psychologist with food to almost do food critiques. And now moving forward with that message, trying to take my transformative journey through food to other people's lives.
This concept of foodology that you talk about is so interesting to me, because one of the things I always hear people talk about when they talk about senior living is the food experience. And
Mhm.
when a lot of seniors move into senior living, listeners know this, food is it's a top 3 satisfier for any living experience.
Mhm.
But it is also one of the few things that they still have massive control over when they move into assisted living. And so this concept of foodology is just fascinating for application in senior living. So I want you to kind of walk us through what foodology is, right? And so thinking about the influence of taste and smell, the
Mhm.
visuals, those kinds of things. So let's kind of start high level and then we can work our way down. So what is foodology?
It's a synonym for gastronomy. And so it really is looking at the preparation, consumption, the cultural significance, the textures, the flavors, the presentation of food, all of it into one. That really is a good word to describe just the experience of eating. And you can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want down that experience and rabbit hole.
So when we kind of start to parse that a little bit, I want to start with talking about like taste and smell, right? Because I think most people generally think, oh, well, if it tastes good, then it's going to be good. But taste is a part of it, but it's not the only sense. And quite honestly, it's probably not the most important sense when it comes to food. And so let's talk a little bit about how taste and smell can work together to influence our choices and our preferences.
Well, the smell, your olfactory senses are required in order to have taste. If you've ever been sick or stuffed up with a nose that you can't taste anything, the reason is because you don't have the smell to associate with it. And so the taste buds, they change over time, especially with use, with changes in your biology and your environment. Everything impacts taste. And so over time, what tastes good early on might not taste good later, especially with age. And as you get to get older, your senses dull. And when your senses dull, some things might taste sharper or some things might taste bland. And it's just part of adapting and recognizing those changes to help cope with those changes.
I've known this for a while, but it was such a shocking statistic. It was, I believe it's by the age of 75, you've lost 55% of your taste buds. They just don't function. And so when you think about losing that sense of taste, combine it with the diminishing sense of smell, how does that impact the emotional relationship that people can have with food?
Well, it's really the people are holding on to the memories that they formed over time. And that's the key right there. You might continue to have that chicken that you love or that steak that you love, and you're really more or less remembering how good it tastes. And you're holding on to that because that is so ingrained and that is what brought you pleasure. And those the last little memories that really bring you joy and it resonates with you because that's something that's been impactful for you your entire life. And it's hard because you're losing a sense of yourself. And I think that that is one thing that as time goes on that we lose track of is that we're always changing every second, minute, hour, day, week, month, year, decade. It's a change. And we hold on to the perceptions of ourselves instead of embracing that it is changing and then working towards change because we don't like change as people.
I've had, I don't know how many conversations around the concept of change and how much people hate it, but we just know we have to live with it. And so thinking about the visual piece, because I know that a thing that I constantly harp on operators and chefs, and we have a lot of amazing chefs that do a good job of this in our space, but we still need more and more focus on this, is the visual presentation of
Sure.
food. And so, in your research and your study and in understanding those connections with the senses and food and how it all works, what kind of impact can the visual presentation have on taste, on smell, on those other senses?
Well, it has a considerable one because you can even go back to your early childhood and when you're walking up and down the aisle or checking out, you look over at the candy aisle. Your eyes, lots of study and research has gone into what packaging is going to attract you. So you're already preconditioned to potentially like what's in that beautiful package without truly realizing, do I like it? And then it's enhanced with sugar and salt. And so when you say visual, you take that up, you build those visual perceptions through your formative years and you take it all the way up to your senior years. And so the vision is very important because it primes the brain to think what you're about to eat. But it does play tricks on you as in you might think it's going to be good and it might not be very good or it might look ugly and it tastes incredible. It sets the tone for what you think you're going to put in your mouth no matter how much you try and control that thought.
Yeah, and this seems pretty elementary, but if I see something and it looks burnt and it doesn't present well, like maybe like like charred Brussels sprouts, right? Or
Sure.
crusted, you know, they may look unappetizing, but I know the flavor is there. Is that kind of one of those things where that you mentioned conditioning, where if it's something new or that you haven't tried before, where the experience of the visual and then reconnecting it with the flavor, what kind of impact can that have? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, it's significant. The first stage is trying to, especially if you're breaking out of your comfort zone to experience something. You're already preconditioned when you see something. Well, I'm not going to like that because either
Yeah.
you've had experience or it looks like something you wouldn't like, or more importantly, you think you wouldn't like, even though you might not have tried it before. Or you tried it years ago in an incorrect preparation or in a different preparation. And so we're then preconditioned to not even give it a try. So you have to fight through that barrier and be willing to take that chance to try and experience the renew of something or something completely new.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes perfect sense. And it kind of falls with what I was thinking. Regarding like texture, I know that in senior living, one of the things that we have to work through, we have to deal with is yes, we want this amazing dining experience. And we're also, there's healthcare involved, right? And so we will have texture modified diets, pureed items. What can we do to keep those items from coming off as off-putting or getting those individuals to want to eat those items?
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Well, I think that, it's working with the client and developing the relationship, working with the individual to prime them to be more receptive. For example, if you sit there and drink that or eat that with them, they're more inclined because we are individuals who are tribal at our many levels. We seek companionship. There's not many of us that truly enjoy isolation. And the next thing is even talking with the individuals and the seniors and asking, well, what are some flavor profiles you like? Talk to me about it. And then even whenever you are sitting there, try and find products and flavors that they might match up with them. And building that relationship and that connection through that food with them is going to be essential to trying those things that you would otherwise think no.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And you alluded to something that I definitely wanted to make sure we talked about, which was this idea of food as a cultural narrative, like the storytelling around food. And so how important is, we've talked about the senses and that part of the experience, but how important is understanding the backstory of food and the people eating and enjoying it to connecting everything and creating a successful dining experience?
Well, the culture is massive, especially for the story and those who are interested in it. It's the chefs, the food is the expression and the extension of the chef. It's who they are, generally speaking.
Mm.
That's what a lot of publications, magazines, news articles they focus on these days are the chef, where they come from, the background. One thing that those articles lack is a deep description of the food, this atmosphere, the service that goes into it. And so you discuss the chef and you discuss what they are doing, but at the expense of the details of the fine dining experience after the chef. And so you set this narrative, and it's very interesting that you're going in there for the background and the culture, which is incredibly important. But when you go in there, if that doesn't match what you think you know about the chef through the flavor profiles, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But oftentimes you're setting yourself up for success because you're trying to make that cultural connection.
Yeah, the what you said there about the chef, right? And being able to tell the chef story and that being the focus, I one of the things that I know senior living does a lot of that is very similar to restaurants is the chef almost becomes like this little mini personality, this little mini super good ones. If they're really good, they're the star, right? They're in the kitchen, they whip up these amazing dishes and they get known for that, right? And so sometimes that covers up for some of the sins of the rest of the operation. But I think it can also overshadow the whole experience, right? Because
Sure.
just because the food is great, if everything else is awful, then it's not going to be a great experience. And so when thinking about that, how I think you would agree with this. You would say we need to shift that focus away from the chef as a personality and more onto the food that we're serving and the environment that it's in. And so talk to me a little bit about that concept and that idea.
I think we need to shift in the sense of coming to sort of a middle ground. I think that if we discuss the food in great detail and then say it's the extension of the chef or vice versa with equal weight, you have a more compelling story. And you set the food up to match the personality of the chef rather than hoping that the food matches the culture and the personality of the chef. It just depends on those variable and those factors. So I would say that there does need to be a shift, but it's not necessarily a significant one, but more one that is in moderation, trying to swing that pendulum to the middle.
And on that vein, how can an operator look to balance that narrative? So, what are some strategies that you've seen with successful operators that are able to do that, that can elevate that entire experience for dining?
So what I've really seen is the first off, the chef, when I see the chef in the kitchen putting forth the effort, that's massive because a lot of those celebrity chefs, they're doing things, but they're not necessarily in their kitchen. Or if they have 5 or 6 kitchens, are they spread too thin? And so that sense and essence of who they are and what they are might get lost in the weight of their success essentially. And so whenever you see everything operating smoothly, and this is something that I really have come to experience, especially in the fine dining world, the best restaurants with the best food, the best atmosphere, it doesn't matter if it's fine dining or it doesn't matter if it's comfort food, are restaurants where it's owned in part or in whole by the chef instead of an extension of a restaurant group the majority of the time, or if the chef has an incredible relationship with the owner or the restaurant group.
So when you think about, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. How does that kind of concept translate into a setting like senior living, where they are an employee? Yes, it's their kitchen. The restaurant is part of this bigger, broader branded community.
Mhm.
What are some thoughts you would put around that idea?
So So again, does the chef's personality and what they're doing in their extension match the community and vice versa? Does the community accept that? That the relation, it still goes back to the relationship. And so if the chef builds that relationship with the community and understands and has a passion for that, then by proxy, they're going to show that in their food.
It's funny you said relationship because I do think that the most successful chefs that I've worked with and that I see in the industry are the ones that they don't necessarily talk about doing food. They don't talk about
Mhm.
creating food. They talk about their ability to connect with
Mhm.
people and make that connection just kind of feed into what they do. And I think the nice thing here is that when they're doing that, it's very much how the most successful chefs and restaurants out there on the street are also creating success.
Exactly.
I didn't want to let you go without talking a little bit about your book. So just talk to us a little bit about your book, your YouTube channel, what you're doing on those fronts and why our listeners should take a look at all of it.
So the book is an easy read, and the idea was to connect with people and to begin with a memory of food and end with a thought on memory. And in between is the journey. It's discovering ourselves, discovering bias, discovering how I overcome that weight loss that I was talking about, especially after losing my father, discovering your entire world through the 5 senses and through the universal language of food. Food is us. And if you're able to enhance your life through food, you can take that same pattern and apply it to any other part of your life. And that's what's really magical. And that's sort of what I talk about. And I even go so far as to adding some recipes in the book. And the recipes aren't necessarily the ones that come from a cookbook, but rather from my experiences tasting and understanding the flavor profiles and bringing them into my home from the restaurant.
And so your book, A Feast for the Senses, The
Mhm.
Psychological Art of Eating Well, it's out and available. Where can people find it?
It's available on Amazon. You have a Kindle, you have a paperback version, and you also have a hardcover with an audiobook soon to come.
And then your YouTube channel, how can people find that?
Just Jared Gleaton on YouTube. But primarily focus on Tulsa restaurants and some Oklahoma City restaurants, but we've recently branched off into a Michelin series featuring Michelin restaurants in Chicago.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, Jared, thank you so much for coming on and talking about foodology. helping me and the listeners understand how we can take it and apply it in senior living. I think
Mhm.
this connection makes so much sense. And I just appreciate the way you've approached this and the way you've framed it. So thanks for joining us today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestle. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.